Dad, don't drink that. Ruby Miller's small hand clamped around her father's wrist just as Luke raised the crystal glass toward his lips. The ballroom went still. Beneath the white tablecloth, near the carved leg of the VIP table, a white pill glimmered against the dark carpet. Claire Whitmore froze halfway between the stage and the crowd, while Grant Huxley smiled too smoothly and said, "Security, remove the child." Luke did not drink. He lowered the glass 1 inch, then another, his calloused fingers steady around the stem even as every expensive face in the room turned toward him. The violinist missed a note. Someone's champagne flute clicked against a plate. Ruby pointed again, her breath shaking. It fell from there. 3 hours earlier, Luke Miller had entered the service hallway of the Fairmont Ballroom through the back door, wearing a white shirt that had been ironed twice but still carried the tired creases of a man who owned only one good work shirt. The hallway smelled of lemon polish, coffee grounds, and the sharp metallic breath of warming trays. A black tie hung slightly crooked at his collar. In his jacket pocket, folded with care, was a small white cloth he always carried when he worked events, clean enough to serve with, soft enough to wipe Ruby's tears if the night became too long. Ruby sat on a storage crate near the employee lockers, her knees together, her sketchbook open, a red crayon tucked behind one ear. She was 8, but grief had taught her how to be quiet in adult places. Luke hated that most of all. "Just until break," he whispered, crouching so his eyes were level with hers. "You stay where I can see you. No wandering." Ruby nodded and hugged the sketchbook to her chest. "I can draw the lights." He looked through the narrow service window into the ballroom. Gold chandeliers glowed over round tables dressed in white linen. Donors laughed softly beside towers of flowers. On the far side of the room, Claire Whitmore stood near the stage, tall and composed in a navy dress, a silver bracelet bright at her wrist as cameras flashed around her. Luke did not know her story. He only knew the event paid time and a half, and time and a half meant Ruby's allergy medicine could be picked up before Sunday. Marla Keene spotted him before he took 3 steps. She crossed the hallway with a clipboard pressed to her chest like a badge. "You brought a child?" Her voice was low, but sharp enough to cut through the clatter of dishes. Luke straightened. "My sitter canceled. She'll stay back here. She won't bother anyone." Marla looked past him at Ruby, then down at Luke's polished but worn shoes. "This is a charity gala, Mr. Miller, not a daycare." Luke absorbed the words without blinking. He had learned that anger cost more than silence. "I understand, ma'am. I'll finish the work I was hired to do." Marla's mouth tightened, not because he had argued, but because he had not begged. She handed him a tray assignment and tapped the screen of the service tablet with one red fingernail. "West side only. Do not approach the VIP table unless called. Do not speak to sponsors. Do not create a scene." "Yes, ma'am." He took the tray. Ruby watched him from the crate, small and still under the fluorescent light. Luke gave her the faintest smile, the kind a father makes when he is trying to keep the world from showing its teeth. Inside the ballroom, Grant Huxley lifted a microphone and spoke about family values, generosity, and trust. Guests applauded. Beside him, Victor Hale stood with both hands folded over his cufflinks, his expression calm as locked glass. Marla moved behind the service curtain, picked up a stack of white towels, and for one brief second, Ruby saw something silver flash between the folds before it disappeared. Ruby blinked at the silver flash, then looked down at her sketchbook as if staring harder at the paper could make the uneasiness go away. The service hallway kept moving around her, trays sliding, wheels squeaking, ice scoops clinking against metal bins. Luke had already stepped through the curtain with a tray of sparkling water balanced on one palm, his shoulders squared in that careful way men stand when they cannot afford to look tired. Marla Keene followed him with her eyes, smiling at a passing donor as though kindness lived naturally on her face. "West side, Mr. Miller." "Yes, ma'am." "And keep the child invisible." Luke paused for less than a breath, then nodded once. The words landed where Ruby could hear them, soft enough to be denied, sharp enough to stay. She bent over her drawing, coloring the chandelier yellow while her father moved between tables like a quiet shadow. The ballroom smelled of roses, perfume, and expensive food under heat lamps. Gold light spilled across white tablecloths so smooth they looked untouched by real hands. Luke stopped near table 12, refilled a glass before a donor could ask, and stepped back without inserting himself into anyone's conversation. Still, a woman in pearls pulled her purse closer when he passed. A man in a navy suit looked at Luke's temporary badge and whispered, "They hire anybody for these things now." Luke heard it. His hand tightened on the tray for 1 second. Then he shifted the weight, lowered his eyes, and moved on. At the VIP table, Claire Whitmore's silver bracelet caught the chandelier light every time she lifted her hand to greet another guest. She stood beside Grant Huxley, who looked polished enough to belong on the cover of a business magazine. His smile measured, his hand resting lightly at the back of Claire's chair without quite touching her. Victor Hale remained near the stage steps, calm, dry-eyed, watching the room as if every person there were a number waiting to be moved. Luke did not look at them long. Men like him learned not to stare into worlds that had already decided they were trespassing. A server near the curtain almost dropped a tray when Marla snapped her fingers. "Luke, cover table 9. Now." He glanced at the service tablet clipped beside the coffee station. Table 9 was not his zone. It was close to the VIP area, marked in red for senior staff only. "The tablet says West Side only," he said quietly. Marla's smile never changed, but her eyes hardened. "Are you refusing an instruction?" "No, ma'am." "Good. Then don't make me explain basic hospitality." He took the extra tray because arguing would make noise, and noise would find Ruby. As he crossed the polished floor, one wheel of a dessert cart struck a wrinkle in the carpet runner, sending a thin splash of berry sauce toward the hem of a donor's pale dress. Luke stepped in fast, caught the wobbling tray with his free hand, and took the stain across his own sleeve instead. The donor gasped, then frowned at him as if the mess had begun inside his poverty. "Careful," she said. "These dresses cost more than your truck." Luke swallowed, reached for the white cloth in his pocket, and wiped the floor first so no one would slip. "You're right, ma'am. I'll be careful." Claire, half turned toward a photographer, caught only the end of it. The stained sleeve, the bent posture, the calm reply. Something in her expression paused, not softened exactly, but paused. Then Grant leaned close and murmured something that pulled her back into the cameras. A flash popped. Applause rose as the foundation video began on the large screen. Children smiling, volunteers serving meals, words like dignity, future, and care floating over piano music. Behind the curtain, Ruby watched her father return with berry sauce drying on his cuff and no anger on his face. She slid off the crate and reached for his hand, but Marla stepped between them with a stack of towels pressed to her clipboard. "Your break is not scheduled." Luke looked past her to Ruby. "She just needs water." Marla lowered her voice. "Then teach her not to need it in the middle of a donor event." Luke's jaw moved once, then stilled. He crouched anyway, pulled a small bottle from beneath the service counter, and placed it in Ruby's hands. "Sip slow, sweetheart." Ruby nodded, but her eyes stayed on Marla's towels. One corner of the white cloth had folded open, just enough for the silver bracelet inside to glint again beneath the fluorescent light. And before Ruby could speak, Marla turned toward the ballroom and called out, almost too quickly, "Has anyone checked the employee area?" Marla's question seemed to cut the service hallway in half. "Has anyone checked the employee area?" she called again, louder this time, her voice polished with concern now that donors could hear it. Ruby's fingers tightened around the water bottle. Luke saw her eyes fixed on the stack of towels in Marla's arms, saw that small, frightened crease appear. Between her brows, the one that always came when she was trying to understand an adult lie. "Ruby." His voice stayed low. "Stay by the crate." "Daddy, I saw." "Not now, sweetheart." He did not say it harshly. He said it like a man placing both hands around a candle in the wind. Marla turned toward him with a thin smile, the kind that looked professional from 10 feet away and cruel from 2. "Problem?" Luke looked at the towels, then at Ruby, then back to Marla. He could have pointed. He could have accused. But Ruby was 8. The hallway was full of strangers, and the room beyond the curtain had already decided poor people explained missing things. So he chose the harder silence. "No, ma'am," he said, "just keeping her out of the way." Marla's smile sharpened, as if his restraint proved her point. That would be a first. Then the ballroom curtain parted and Natalie Reed hurried through with the navy folder pressed against her chest, her face pale beneath careful makeup. Victor Hale's voice followed her from behind the curtain, smooth and cold. "After the toast, Natalie. Not before." She flinched at the sound of her own name, and the folder slipped from her hands. Papers fanned across the service floor, sliding under the coffee station, under a cart wheel, beneath Luke's polished but worn shoes. A server laughed under his breath. Marla sighed like the mistake had personally offended the charity. Luke set down his tray and crouched. He did not ask what was in the folder. He did not glance around to see if anyone noticed him helping. He simply gathered the pages one at a time, smoothing bent corners with his thumb, careful not to smear berry sauce from his sleeve onto the documents. The top sheet flashed a line in bold black type, "Emergency proxy vote." Beneath it were columns of numbers, signatures, donor codes, words from a world that did not belong to him but somehow made Natalie's hands shake. "You don't have to," she whispered. "I know," Luke said. "That's usually when it matters." Natalie stared at him for half a second too long. Her old phone buzzed inside her blazer pocket, a dull, trapped sound against the fabric. She looked down. The screen lit just enough for Luke to see a message preview before she pressed it dark with her palm. "Make sure Claire drinks after the toast." Luke did not react. Not outwardly. But the words settled somewhere behind his ribs, cold and small. He handed her the folder, spine first, so the papers would not scatter again. "You dropped page 7 near the cart," he said quietly. She blinked, then looked down. He reached under the wheel and pulled out the missing page before anyone stepped on it. Marla snapped her fingers. "Mr. Miller, are you staff or a spectator?" "Staff," he said, standing. "Then act like it." Natalie opened her mouth, but Luke shook his head once, barely enough to be seen. "Do not make yourself the target," that small motion said. He had learned that kind of language after his wife died, when every bill came with a late fee and every office treated grief like bad paperwork. Sometimes protecting someone meant letting the insult land on you instead. He picked up his tray and stepped back into the ballroom. Near the stage, an elderly donor had begun coughing into a linen napkin, her untouched ice water sweating onto the table. Luke exchanged it for warm water from the service station without being asked. Then he noticed the carpet runner curling near the aisle where Claire Whitmore would soon walk for the toast. He knelt, pressed it flat, and wiped the damp edge with the white cloth from his pocket. Claire saw only the end of it from across the room. The temporary server on one knee, fixing a hazard no one had thanked him for, while a powerful man waited at the microphone to speak about compassion. Grant's hand moved to his ring, turning it once, twice. Natalie clutched the navy folder against her chest as if it had become heavier, and Ruby, still in the service hallway, picked up her red crayon and drew the towels exactly as she had seen them, with one small silver curve hidden inside the white. Luke's quiet kindness did not make the room kinder. It only made him easier to use. By the time he returned to the west side with a fresh tray, Marla had already begun shaping the night into a story that would fit cleanly inside a report. A missing bracelet, a temporary server, a child where no child should be. The ballroom kept shining as if nothing ugly could survive under chandeliers, but Luke could feel the air changing around him, the way a father feels weather before rain. Near the VIP table, Claire Whitmore lowered her champagne flute and watched Marla speak to security with one hand over her microphone. She did not look angry yet. She looked careful. Careful people did not trust quickly, and Luke understood that. A silver bracelet had disappeared at her own charity gala. A temporary employee had been seen near restricted tables. His daughter was tucked behind a curtain where no guest's child belonged. On paper, suspicion had a shape, and that shape looked a lot like him. "Mr. Miller," Marla said, stepping into his path. "You were told west side only." "Yes, ma'am." "Then why were you near the stage?" "The carpet was curled." "And the folder?" "It fell." 3 short answers. No heat. No bleeding. Luke held the tray steady while ice knocked softly against glass. Marla's smile thinned. "You seem to be everywhere something goes wrong." Across the room, Claire heard that line and glanced down at the service tablet in a young server's hand. The server quickly turned the screen away, not out of guilt, but fear of Marla. That tiny motion made Claire pause. Grant Huxley stepped smoothly beside her before the pause could become a question. "This is why I hate outsourcing event staff," he murmured, his voice warm enough for donors nearby to mistake it for concern. "You try to be inclusive, and someone takes advantage." Claire did not answer. She only looked toward Luke, then toward Ruby, who sat half-hidden behind the service curtain with her red crayon frozen above the page. The applause began again as Grant walked to the microphone for his toast. "Tonight," he said, smiling beneath the soft gold lights, "we honor trust, family, the sacred duty to protect those who cannot protect themselves." Ruby's crayon slipped from her fingers. It rolled under the curtain, across the carpet, and stopped near the carved leg of the VIP table. She looked at Luke first. He was blocked by Marla. She looked at the crayon. It was only a crayon, so she slid down carefully, staying low the way children do when they think being small makes them invisible. Under the table's white linen edge, the world became shoes, chair legs, shadows, and dangling hands. Ruby reached for the red crayon. Then she saw Grant's shoes turn toward Claire's place setting. A white cocktail napkin moved over a crystal glass. His hand covered the rim, not long, not dramatic, just one practiced second while the room clapped at his own words. The thin lemon slice inside Claire's water shifted. Before, Ruby had drawn it like a little moon facing left. Now it faced sideways like an eye. Another glass slid in its place. A bead of water ran down Grant's cuff and darkened the white fabric at his wrist. Ruby did not know what proxy votes were. She did not know what a CFO did. She did not know why Natalie looked scared or why Marla had silver hidden in towels. But she knew when a thing on a table changed places. She crawled back, clutching the crayon, and tugged at Luke's sleeve the moment he was close enough. "Daddy!" The glass changed. Luke bent slightly, still holding the tray. "What glass?" Ruby pointed with the crayon, not at Grant, not at Claire, just at the VIP table. The lemon moved. Marla gave a soft laugh. "Children imagine things when they're tired." Grant turned from the microphone just enough to smile down at Ruby. "Poor sweetheart. Big rooms can be confusing." But he said it too quickly. And when Luke looked past the white tablecloth, past the polished glassware, past the bracelet Claire no longer wore, he saw the wet crescent on Grant Huxley's cuff catching the chandelier light like a secret trying not to shine. The wet crescent on Grant Huxley's cuff lasted only a second before he lowered his hand. But Luke had spent too many years fixing faulty wiring in old buildings not to notice small things that did not belong. Water traveled. Stains told direction. A man standing too far from the drink station should not have a fresh mark on the inside of his sleeve. Luke looked down at Ruby, whose red crayon was still pointed toward the VIP table. "Stay beside me," he said softly. "I am." Her voice was small but steadier now because he had listened. Then Marla's voice rang across the ballroom with the clean force of a gavel. "I'm so sorry, Ms. Whitmore. We've located your bracelet." The room shifted at once. Forks paused halfway to plates. Chairs stopped scraping. Claire turned from the stage, her bare wrist suddenly visible beneath the gold lights. Marla stood near the service station holding a folded white towel between 2 fingers, and inside it lay the silver bracelet that had circled Claire's wrist less than an hour before. "Where was it found?" Claire asked. Marla lowered her eyes with rehearsed regret. "Near the employee trays." She did not point at Luke immediately. She let the silence do it first. Then she looked at his temporary badge. A murmur spread through the room, soft and poisonous. Luke felt Ruby press against his leg. He did not move away from her. "That isn't mine," he said. "No one said it was," Marla replied. "Not yet." Victor Hale stepped forward from beside the stage, his cufflinks catching the light like two small coins. His voice was calm, almost sympathetic. "Let's not embarrass anyone more than necessary. Mr. Miller, perhaps you can help us close this quickly." Luke kept his eyes on the bracelet, not Marla's face. "Check the service log." Marla's smile twitched. "Excuse me? The tablet shows where I was assigned. West Side only. I never served that table." A young server near the coffee station glanced down at the service tablet still glowing in his hand. For one dangerous second, Claire saw the map on the screen. Luke's name tagged to the West Side, the VIP table marked restricted. Then Marla reached over and took the tablet from him. "Internal staffing records are not for public discussion. They are if you're using them to accuse me," Luke said, still quiet. That was the moment the laughter thinned. Not vanished, just thinned, like smoke under a door. Claire's hand slowly came down from her braceletless wrist and rested on the navy folder Natalie had set near the podium. Grant moved closer to her, smiling for the donors. "Claire, darling, this is becoming a scene." Victor nodded toward the crystal glass near the VIP table, the one with the thin lemon slice turned sideways in the water. "There is a simple way to demonstrate good faith. Mr. Miller has suggested something was wrong with the glass. If he truly believes this is all a misunderstanding, let him drink it. We'll all see there's nothing to hide." Luke looked at the glass, then at Ruby, then at Claire. "That was not my glass." Victor's expression did not change. "It is now in your possession." Grant lifted it by the stem and placed it into Luke's hand, gentle as a blessing, cruel as a trap. "A good father," Grant said, loud enough for the front tables to hear, "would want his daughter to see him tell the truth." Ruby's fingers dug into Luke's sleeve. Luke's jaw tightened once, but he did not throw the glass down. He did not call Grant a liar. He did not turn his daughter into a shield. He only said, "My daughter doesn't need to watch me prove innocence by obeying humiliation." Marla gestured to security. "Then he's refusing." "I didn't refuse evidence," Luke said. "I refused a performance." Claire's eyes flicked to Victor at the word evidence. The air conditioner hummed above them, suddenly louder than the guests. Somewhere, a camera light blinked red from the balcony. Victor leaned in, still smiling, but the smile had lost its warmth. "Drink it, Mr. Miller." Luke lifted the glass because every guard in the room had taken one step toward him, and because Ruby was shaking. Before the rim reached his mouth, her hand snapped around his wrist. "Dad, don't drink that." The red crayon fell from her other hand and rolled under the edge of the tablecloth. Ruby pointed down. A white pill sat near the table leg on the dark carpet, small as a breath, bright as a confession. Claire froze. Grant's smile stayed in place, but his ring finger began to turn the band faster. And Luke finally understood that the bracelet was not the real trap. It was only the door they had built to make him swallow whatever truth they needed gone. The white pill did not move, yet it changed the weight of every breath in the ballroom. Luke kept one arm in front of Ruby and the other hand open beside the glass, as if even his fingers understood that touching too much could ruin what little truth had. Finally appeared. Marla stepped forward first, her face bright with panic disguised as order. "It could be a mint," she said. "Something from dinner service." "Then nobody should mind leaving it where it is," Luke replied. His voice stayed low, but this time it carried. Claire looked from the pill to the glass, then to the sideways lemon slice floating near the rim. She did not look convinced. She looked awake. "Seal the glass," she said. Victor Hale gave a soft laugh, almost fatherly. "Claire, we don't need to turn a donor event into a crime scene over a child's imagination." "Seal the glass," she repeated, colder now. A security supervisor stepped in with a clear evidence bag from the hotel office, moving carefully, hands visible. The crystal glass went inside first. Then a second guard placed a small plastic cup over the pill so no shoe or sweeping hand could disturb it. The room watched in a silence that did not yet believe Luke, but no longer fully believed the men accusing him. Grant leaned close to Claire, keeping his smile for the donors. "Let me handle this privately. You're shaken." She did not move away, but her eyes flicked to the wet mark on his cuff. "I'm not shaken," she said. "I'm counting." That was when the young server Marla had taken the tablet from Shifted near the coffee station. Luke saw him glance at the screen, then at Marla, then down again, like a man afraid of a truth he had not meant to hold. "Ma'am," Luke said, not to Marla but to Claire, "the service log will show where I was." Marla cut in. "Temporary staff make mistakes. Logs don't. You're not authorized to interpret our system." "I'm not interpreting it. I'm asking you not to erase it." The sentence landed harder than he expected. Claire turned. "Bring me the tablet." Marla hesitated for 1 second too long before handing it over. Her red fingernail tapped the edge as if she could still control what it said. Claire scrolled without speaking. The blue-white light from the screen sharpened her face. Luke Miller, West Service. "No VIP assignment. No table clearance. No bracelet handling." Timestamps placed him near table 12 when Marla claimed the bracelet had been discovered. Near employee trays. Claire's thumb stopped. Who reassigned him to table 9? No one answered. Victor stepped closer. "That's a staffing issue, not evidence." "Then why are you sweating over it?" Claire asked. For the first time all evening, Victor blinked before he smiled. The hotel security manager returned with a laptop, and the main ballroom camera feed opened on a side monitor near the stage. Guests leaned in despite themselves. Chairs creaked. The fountain behind the dessert table kept running, its water suddenly too loud. The footage showed Grant at the microphone, Claire turning for photographs, servers crossing in clean lines. Then, just before the toast, the video jumped. 18 seconds vanished into a smooth black hiccup. "Common reset glitch," Victor said instantly. The technician looked up. "I haven't given the duration yet, sir." The silence that followed was smaller than the one to come, but deeper. Claire slowly turned her head toward her CFO. "How did you know it was 18 seconds? Victor's mouth opened, then closed. Grant placed a hand against Claire's back. "This is spiraling. We have press in the room." Luke felt Ruby trembling against his leg. He wanted to say everything now, to point at the cuff, the lemon, the bracelet, Marla's towels, Natalie's fear. But anger would scatter the evidence like dropped papers. So he crouched beside Ruby instead. "Sweetheart, nobody is asking you to solve anything," he whispered. "Just remember what you saw." Natalie stood near the podium with the navy folder against her chest, her old phone buzzing once inside her blazer. On the folder's top page, under the ballroom lights, the words "emergency proxy vote" seemed darker than before. Claire saw them too. She saw Natalie's white knuckles, Victor's frozen smile, Grant's damp cuff, and Luke kneeling beside a child everyone had tried to remove. Her voice changed when she spoke again, not louder, only final. "No one leaves this room. Call legal counsel. Preserve every camera angle, every service log, every message connected to this event." Grant's smile thinned. "Claire, you're making a public mistake." She looked toward the stage, then toward the donors, then down at the sealed glass resting between them like a quiet accusation. "No," she said. "Someone already made one. Now we find out who." And as the ballroom doors were quietly closed by security, Luke understood the truth was no longer small enough to be buried behind a service curtain. The ballroom did not empty. It rearranged itself into something colder. Round tables became witness benches. The charity stage became a kind of courtroom, and the giant screen that had been built to show smiling children and donation totals now glowed blank above Claire Whitmore's shoulder. Security stood at every exit, not with drawn weapons or raised voices, but with the quiet firmness that told the wealthy their names would not open the doors tonight. Luke Miller remained near the west aisle with Ruby behind his hip, his white shirt stained at one sleeve, his black tie still slightly crooked, the sealed glass and the small covered pill resting on a side table 10 feet away like two objects too small to hold so much fear. Grant Huxley stepped into the center of the room first. He did not look cornered. He looked wounded in a way that photographed well. "Claire," he said, turning just enough for the donors to hear. "This has gone far enough." A frightened child saw movement under a table. A temporary server panicked. A bracelet was misplaced. "We can handle this without humiliating everyone in the room." Murmurs rose, grateful for any explanation that allowed the evening to become elegant again. Marla Keene nodded quickly, clutching her clipboard to her chest. Mr. Miller violated staff boundaries repeatedly. His daughter should never have been in the service area. That alone explains the confusion. Luke did not answer. He felt Ruby's fingers slide into his palm, small and damp. He squeezed once, not to silence her, but to steady her. Claire stood beside the podium, one hand resting on the Navy charity folder, her face unreadable beneath the stage lights. "Play the service log first," she said. The young technician swallowed and connected the tablet to the screen. A map of the ballroom appeared, dots marking staff positions by time. Luke Miller, West Service. Table 12. Coffee station. Carpet runner. Nowhere near the VIP table when the bracelet vanished. The room quieted, but Grant recovered faster than anyone. "A log shows assignments, not intentions," he said gently. He could have left his zone. We all know systems are imperfect. For a moment that almost worked. People understood imperfect systems. They preferred them to deliberate cruelty. Then Luke lifted his eyes for the first time. "If the system is imperfect," he said, "why did everyone trust it when it made me look guilty?" The sentence did not strike like thunder. It settled like dust on polished wood. Claire glanced at him, not with pity, but with attention. "Show the main camera," she ordered. The ballroom footage appeared. Grant at the microphone. Claire pulled toward a donor photo. Marla moving near the service curtain. Victor watching the stage steps. Then the screen hiccuped black. 18 seconds gone. Victor gave a patient sigh. A reset glitch. Hotels have them all the time. The technician looked at Claire. The reset was not automatic. It used an executive access code. Victor's smile held, but one hand closed around his cufflink. "Many senior staff have temporary access during events. Then we will identify which one," Claire said. Grant moved closer to her. "This is turning into a spectacle." Luke looked at Ruby, then at the screen, then at the covered pill. It became a spectacle when you asked a father to drink from a glass his child was afraid of. Grant's expression flickered. Only once. Marla stepped in quickly. "The child is tired. She's been drawing all night. Children mix up details." Claire turned toward Ruby, but did not step toward her. "Ruby," she said softly, "you do not have to explain everything, just one thing. What did you see that made you scared?" Ruby stayed behind Luke, holding the red crayon like a tiny anchor. "The lemon moved," she whispered, "and his ring was turning." Grant gave a sad smile to the room. "I wear a ring, Claire. Half the men here do." Luke crouched beside Ruby. "Don't make her bigger than she is," he said. "She saw a hand. That's all. Start there." Claire looked to the technician. "Pull the live stream from the communications crew. The side camera. The one facing the donation screen." Grant's face remained calm, but his ring stopped turning. Natalie Reed stood frozen near the podium, her old phone clenched in both hands, the Navy folder pressed against her ribs. On the giant screen, a new video file appeared, paused at the edge of the VIP table, waiting to play. The side camera footage began without music, without narration. Only the dry electronic hum of the projector and the faint clink of glass captured by a microphone meant for donor speeches. On the giant screen, Grant Huxley stood at the VIP table during his own applause, smiling toward the room while his right hand moved under the cover of a white cocktail napkin. The angle was poor, but Ruby's tiny voice had been right. The lemon moved. Claire's glass, the one with the thin slice turned like a little moon, shifted sideways beneath Grant's hand, then slid away from Claire's place setting and toward the edge of the table where Luke would later be forced to stand. No one spoke. The air conditioner whispered over the chandeliers. A woman near table 4 lowered her champagne flute without drinking. Grant's face stayed composed, but his ring finger had gone still, pressed hard against the gold band as if trying to hold the room together by force. "That shows nothing criminal," he said, his voice almost gentle. "I adjusted a glass during a toast. That's all." Claire did not look at him. "Play it again. Slower." The technician rewound. The image stuttered back. This time, every I followed the napkin, the cuff, the water darkening the fabric at Grant's wrist. Victor Hale appeared at the far edge of the frame, standing exactly between the VIP table and the main ballroom camera, his back turned at just the right second. Claire's hand tightened on the podium. "Now overlay the service log." A thin map appeared beside the video. Luke Miller, West Service. Table 12. Coffee station. Carpet runner. Nowhere near the VIP table. Nowhere near the bracelet. Nowhere near the glass until it was placed in his hand. The room was no longer watching a poor server defend himself. It was watching a story collapse under its own. Polish. Marla's clipboard slipped slightly against her chest. Victor cleared his throat. "System data can be misread." "Then read this," Natalie Reed whispered. Her voice was so small that the microphone barely caught it, but the room turned. She stood beside the podium with her old phone in both hands, tears shining but not falling. Her thumb hovered over the lock screen. "I need to open it." Victor's head snapped toward her. "Natalie." Luke felt Ruby stiffen against him. The little girl peered at the phone case, then whispered, "It's Eli's birthday." Natalie froze. Ruby pointed shyly from behind Luke's leg to the faded sticker on the back of the phone case, where a child's handwriting read "Happy Birthday, Eli." Natalie closed her eyes as if the smallest mercy had broken the largest fear, entered the numbers, and handed the phone to Claire. Claire read the first message in silence. Then she read it aloud, each word falling heavier than the last. "Plant the bracelet. Make the server drink it. Claire signs nothing tonight." A chair leg scraped once and stopped. Somewhere near the dessert table, the fountain kept pouring water over stone, suddenly vulgar in its calm. Grant reached for the phone. Security stepped between them. "That's fabricated," he said, but the dryness in his voice betrayed him. Natalie lifted her face. "You told me charity makes people stop asking ugly questions." No one moved. Not the donors. Not Marla. Not Victor, whose cufflink finally slipped loose and dropped to the carpet with a sound like a tiny verdict. Claire turned to the security supervisor. "Preserve the phone. Preserve the live stream. Preserve the service logs, the water station list, and the access record for the camera reset." The technician swallowed. "The reset used CFO credentials, Ms. Whitmore." Victor's mouth opened, but no explanation came out. Claire's voice did not rise. It did not need to. "Mr. Hale is suspended from all financial access pending independent audit. Mr. Huxley is to remain with security until police arrive. Ms. Keene is removed from event control immediately." Marla looked toward Luke then, not at his face, but at the shoes she had judged first. Luke did not smile. He did not step forward. He simply picked up Ruby's red crayon from the carpet, placed it back in her small hand, and pulled her gently away from the center of the room. Claire looked at him across the sealed glass, the covered pill, the bracelet, the phone, the broken mask of the evening. "Mr. Miller," she said, and the title alone made the room go quieter. "You did not take anything from me." Luke held Ruby close, his stained sleeve visible under the gold lights. "No, ma'am," he said softly. "I just didn't want my daughter to watch the truth get swallowed." And after the richest room in the city had finally fallen silent before the poorest man in it, the question left hanging was not whether Luke had been innocent, but what he would do now that everyone could finally see him. The applause never came, and that was what made the ending feel honest. People did not clap because clapping would have made it about them. They rose slowly from their tables while hotel security guided Grant Huxley toward a side room to wait for police, his perfect jacket still smooth, his face pale beneath the gold lights. Victor Hale surrendered his access badge to legal counsel with hands that no longer looked steady. Marla Keene stood beside the service curtain, her clipboard held flat against her chest, as if paper could still protect her from what everyone had seen. The sealed glass remained on the side table. The small white pill stayed under its clear plastic cover. The silver bracelet lay beside Natalie Reed's old phone, no longer a symbol of suspicion, but a quiet map of how easily power could frame the person with the least room to defend himself. Luke Miller did not watch Grant leave. He was kneeling near Ruby, tying the lace of her little shoe because it had come loose when she ran to stop him. "You okay, sweetheart?" he asked. Ruby nodded, but her chin trembled. "Did I do something wrong?" Luke's face changed then, not with anger, but with the kind of pain only a father feels when a child mistakes courage for trouble. He brushed a red crayon mark from her palm. "No," he whispered. "You told the truth. Now the grown-ups carry the rest." Claire heard that. She stood a few feet away, holding her mother's bracelet in both hands, but she did not interrupt. For the first time all evening, she seemed less like a woman surrounded by power and more like a woman standing inside the cost of trusting the wrong people. When she finally turned to Marla, her voice was controlled, but it had weight. "You owe Mr. Miller and his daughter an apology." Marla swallowed. "Mr. Miller, Luke stood, keeping Ruby behind him, not hidden this time, only protected. "Start with them," he said, looking toward the line of servers gathered near the curtain. "They get spoken to like they're furniture. Tonight it was me. Tomorrow it'll be someone else." No one moved for a moment. Then Marla turned, and the apology she gave was smaller than the damage, but it was public, and it was recorded by the same room that had watched her point blame downward. Natalie broke then, quietly, one hand over her mouth. "I'm sorry," she said to Luke. "He said he'd ruin my brother's care. I should have spoken sooner." Luke looked at the old phone in Claire's hand, then at the young woman who had been used as a tool by people stronger than her. He could have let the room hate her. He had earned that right. Instead, he said, "If she cooperates, protect her legally. Fear makes people do wrong things. It doesn't mean the powerful get to use them and walk away clean." Claire nodded once, and it was not charity in her eyes. It was respect. "She'll have counsel, independent counsel, and the grant vote is suspended pending a full audit." She looked toward her legal team. "Every camera file, service log, access record, message, and chain of custody gets preserved tonight." Then she turned back to Luke. "Mr. Luke Miller." His full name sounded different in that ballroom, not like a label on a temporary badge, but like something being returned. "You should never have had to prove your dignity by surviving humiliation. I can't undo that, but I can change what happens after it." Luke said nothing. The quiet around him was not empty now. It was listening. Claire continued, "Our foundation needs safety and ethics operations run by people who notice what others ignore. People who protect the vulnerable before it becomes a headline. I'd like you to interview tomorrow, formally, with childcare support included for evening staff starting immediately." Ruby looked up at her father. "Does that mean we can go home?" A soft, broken laugh moved through Luke's breath. "Yes, sweetheart. That means we can go home." He did not take an envelope. He did not pose for the cameras. He folded the white service cloth from his pocket and laid it on the table beside the sealed glass, the pill, the bracelet, and the phone. Earlier, that cloth had marked him as staff, as someone invisible, someone useful only until blamed. Now it looked like what it had always been in his hands. A small thing used to clean spills, steady fear, and protect what others stepped over. Claire watched him lift Ruby into his arms, even though she was almost too big for it, and Ruby rested her head against his stained shoulder with the exhaustion of a child finally allowed to be safe. At the ballroom doors, Luke paused only once. Behind him, the richest room in the city had gone quiet again, not from shock this time, but from understanding. Then the doors opened, the hallway light fell across his worn shoes, and a single father walked out holding his daughter, carrying no trophy but the one thing no lie had been able to take from him: quiet dignity, waiting long enough to become justice.